Hey guys, what's up? It's Timothy here. So I think this makes day 5 of spoilers, and they're still rolling out. Still less than half of this set spoiled, and I'm assuming we'll have a full spoiler by next Friday. So maybe one more day, and then take a break over the weekend, and then see what we get next week, rolling out the rest of the set. But still got a couple rares to go. Still got a couple mythics. Still got some big bangs. And last time we saw a bunch of Nissas and Chandras. This time we're gonna see a bunch of interesting stuff as well. So rolling right in with this card here, Paradoxical Outcome. 3 and a blue for a rare instant that says return any number of target non-land, non-token permanents you control to their owner's hand. Draw a card for each card returned to your hand this way. So this is I'm gonna be honest, I think this card's pretty bad. It is card draw, but it requires you to just lose so much board presence and so much tempo, and the fact that you can't use it with tokens seems really annoying. What you can use it with is these puzzle knots and these other artifacts that just sit on the board. You can bounce those back to draw cards, so we'll see the rest of the puzzle knots here today. But just bounce your extra stuff back to your hand. You can't bounce lands, you can't bounce tokens, but you can bounce creatures. So if you have creatures that have enter the battlefield triggers, then this lets you reuse those triggers. The awkward thing is that you're going to draw cards too, so whether you're recasting those creatures or casting your new spells that you drew, seems like there's a little bit of a toss-up there. But I don't think this card is very good. The only time I would really be super excited to play it is if my opponent has a bunch of pacifism enchantments on my creatures, and then I can get my creatures back, they lose their enchantments, and I'm drawing cards. That seems pretty sweet. So I don't know, maybe more of a sideboard card here. I don't know where else this card would really shine. It does draw you cards, but the price for drawing cards here is just losing a lot of board presence, and I'm not entirely sure that's a fantastic way to go about a game of Limited. Definitely don't see it outside of Limited, but I could be wrong. It looks like the type of card that has combo potential, but I'm not the type of person to come up with that combo. Anyway, so we already saw the green puzzle knot early on in spoilers, and it is a full cycle. So here we have the red puzzle knot, Fire Forger's puzzle knot. 2 mana for a common artifact. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. For 2 and a red, you can sack it and repeat that effect. So this type of effect varies quite considerably based on what the format looks like. If there are a lot of X1s, this is a fantastic ability, and there are a couple already. Not to mention you can always aim it at a player, which seems okay, and then kind of just hold it there to try and finish off a creature, or aim it at a player again. So overall, you're spending 5 mana for 2 damage, which doesn't seem great. If you have anything on the field that cares about you owning artifacts, or if you care about getting artifacts in your graveyard, then maybe this is great. These puzzle knots do work with Delirium as far as standard goes, but I don't really see any of them having a huge impact on standard. Maybe we'll see. Again, sometimes some really interesting cards make it into standard. Thinking Vessel of Nascency, that's a highly played standard card in these Team or Emerge decks, so I wouldn't put it past a couple of these puzzle knot effects to make it into standard. They're just not super powerful. They're obviously more focused on Limited, but they're a good way to get artifacts in your graveyard, a good way to get artifact presence on the board if that matters, and they have a tiny little effect that's sometimes great. If you can ever kill a creature with this, it's fantastic, and if you can ever kill 2, you've definitely got your money's worth out of your 2 mana common artifact. Not something you can say too often. The black one is Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot. 2 mana artifact common. I believe they're all 2 to cast. And then they do the same kind of thing, an enter the battlefield trigger and then a sacrifice and repeat that trigger. So the effect here is draw a card, lose a life. So for a total of 5 mana, you draw 2, lose 2. But the fact that you can split this one up seems pretty nice. So you're playing it right away to kind of replace itself. Overall, if all you're doing is playing this, then you're paying 2 mana to lose a life, and that's not great because it's replacing itself. But the fact that you get to then sack it later on down the line, draw an additional card, lose an additional life seems great. So overall, 5 mana, draw 2, lose 2 is not particularly great, but splitting it up makes it a lot better. And same thing as the red puzzle knot here. If you have an incentive to get artifacts into your graveyard or have artifacts on the battlefield, this is a great way to do it. And that can be said for all 5 of these puzzle knots because they're in green in each color. And remember that the green one gives you energy counters, so the blue one here gives you energy counters as well. This one, when it enters the battlefield or when you sacrifice it for 3 mana, you get to scry 2 and then you get 2 energy. So paying mana just to scry, using a whole card just to scry 2 does not seem particularly great, but attaching it to an ability that you can repeat it with at least once and then also getting those energy counters seems great. Now, if you have a limited deck that doesn't care at all about energy counters, this card gets a lot worse. The combination of the 2 abilities is what makes it playable, if it's playable at all. If I need energy counters in my deck for anything at all, then this card gets way, way better. Again, I don't think scrying is worth playing a whole card for. Especially paying 5 mana to scry a couple times over the course of a game isn't really that different than playing like Contingency Plan and just wasting a turn in a card to kind of set up your draws. But if you need that energy, then you're getting a total of 4 energy. And some of the cards we've seen in this set, like they have very potent abilities if you can dump energy into them. So this is a good way to generate that energy, and I like to think of the scry as a bonus on top of that, not the scry as the incentive to play this card. I think the energy needs to be your incentive before you include this card in your limited deck. And then finally, I don't know why this one gets like wildly different art than the rest. Like maybe it's just me, but Cogworks Puzzle Knot is the white one, and the ability here is make a 1/1 servo artifact creature token. Notably, though, the sacrifice ability is only 1 in a white instead of 2 in a white. So overall, you're paying 4 mana for 2 1/1s, which actually isn't the worst thing in the world. This isn't a powerful effect at all, but keep in mind there are like mass pumps here. There are things that care about you having artifact creatures on the battlefield. There is the dwarf rare guy who gives servos +1/+1, so this is a card I would be actively looking for if I have that guy in my deck. Otherwise, 4 mana for 2 1/1s is not the worst thing in the world, but is not great either. So you either need to really want to go wide here and have the creature presence, or again, same thing as the other ones. If you need artifacts in your graveyard and you're playing a white-based deck that needs that, then go for it. But 2 mana for a 1/1 is not great, and 4 mana for 2 1/1s is certainly not great either. But it's definitely playable. But it's like your 23rd playable. It's easily cuttable for pretty much anything else if you have it. Interesting card incoming here. Aetherflux Reservoir is 4 mana for a rare artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. So the first spell you cast each turn gains you a life. The second one gains you 2 life. The third one gains you 3 life, so on and so forth. So each additional card you cast on a given turn gives you 1 additional life. So if you cast 3 spells in a given turn while you control this, you're gaining 6 life. And then just completely over the top ability here, pay 50 life. Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So, in other words, if you can get your life total higher than your opponent's and somehow manage to get up to 50, you can just kill them straight out. So, odds are they're not going to be playing the same type of deck you are. So, build your life up and up and up, and then kill them. I've seen some people say this might be a finisher for Storm. I don't know that Storm has time to play 4 mana artifacts, but correct me if I'm wrong, it might. The thing is, Storm can just rattle off so many spells that it's not very hard to get up to 50 life on a turn or two with Storm. And another thing, like Oloro, I hate playing against Oloro decks in Commander as it is, so just giving Oloro a really easy way to kill people off at the table. Like, if you played against most people's Oloro's decks, they just play a bunch of counter spells and then they debt to the deathless everybody at the table, and it's really annoying. But this is just a way for Oloro to say, hey, you're out of the game now. Like, I started off the game at 42 life, and I gain life for doing nothing every turn, and take 50. It's just stupid, but this card's really interesting. I love over-the-top cards like this. Timmy cards, so to speak. I think they're sweet. I don't know. I don't see this in Standard, but maybe. It could be Modern. Storm has trouble finishing games sometimes, and that might be a good way to do it. I don't know. I'm not a Storm player. Bristling Hydra is 4 and double green for a rare 4/3 Hydra. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters, and you may pay 3 energy counters to put a 1/1 counter on the Hydra and give it hexproof until end of turn. So a permanent +1/+1. Essentially, you're paying a 4 mana for a 5/4 here, which is really strong. And that ability to give it hexproof seems really, really nice, making it resilient to removal. It does cost a lot of energy, so you need a way to generate that in order to be able to repeat this sort of effect. And we've also seen a couple other green cards already that come in, make energy counters, and then have a use for those energy counters. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how you divvy up your energy counters in these green-based decks or these green-red decks. Because it is very, I want to say mana hungry, but energy hungry, right? It wants you to have a lot of energy to spend, especially this card. You want to always have access to that hexproof ability. This reminds me a lot of Prognostic Sphinx, where you always wanted to have the ability to give your Prognostic Sphinx hexproof, but that card's not relevant anymore, and this card might be. In Limited, I think this card is super strong. I don't really think it has what it takes in Standard, but again, I don't play a lot of Standard compared to how much Limited I play, so that's just my opinion on it. If you can generate tons of energy really quickly, then sure, it's obviously a slam dunk, but in Limited, it's a great card. This card is absolutely insane. Noxious Gearhulk, or as I'm officially calling it, Obnoxious Gearhulk, is the black Gearhulk in this ridiculous cycle of mythic rare artifact creatures. This one happens to be 4 and double black for a 5/4 artifact creature, obviously mythic. It is a menace creature, and menace is really good on large creatures. Menace is just a good ability in general if you plan on winning a game of Magic through attacking, which if you play Limited, that's how you win games of Magic. But menace on big creatures is really, really strong. That's why I think Super Nekrataal is a super strong card from Shadows over Innistrad, because it can just close out games, and your opponent either has to, just take tons of damage or throw a bunch of little guys in the way, or at least trade up, or trade with, a creature they don't necessarily want to block with. But anyway, this thing does more than that. It enters the battlefield. You may destroy another target creature, which... crazy, like that's a fantastic ability. You get a 5/4 menace that blows up another creature, making it even harder for you to block the Gearhulk as is, and then you gain life equal to the destroyed creature's toughness. So that just does so much. This is a great card if you happen to fall behind in a game. This is like your bomb to get you back in the game and to finish the game. So it's not very often you get a card in Limited that can win the game on its own and get you back into a game and pull you back ahead after being behind in the game. That's so much from one card, and this is just absolutely incredible. This might be the strongest Gearhulk here, I know, and that's saying quite a bit because the other ones are really, really strong too. The white one, I think, is really impressive. The green one's a huge beater. The blue one is just a giant value card for its colors. This one is insanely good, doing so much for one card, and I believe Luis Scott Vargas, LSV, posted about it on Channel Fireball, and that's how I saw the spoiler first, and I really appreciate his opinions because he's a fantastic player. So he said pretty much the same thing, and I looked at this card and I said, wow, this card's really good, but I didn't realize the depth of how good it was until I read some other people's opinions on it. But this card is absolutely insane, slam dunk, first pickable, and will very likely see play in Standard, if not at least out of people's sideboards, because it is that strong. This can come down and kill Emrakul and gain you 13 life, which is absolutely insane. It's very strong. Anyway, to cards that are less strong and not mythic and not ridiculous. Shrewd Negotiation is 4 and a blue. That's really weird. I thought it was 3 and a blue, but it's 4 and a blue apparently for an uncommon sorcery that says exchange control of target artifact you control and target artifact or creature you don't control. So this is pretty sweet. I think this is a strong Limited pick because it does a very good impression of being something like a mind control for 5 mana. Just on its basis, swapping a creature for a creature is okay in limited, you're obviously going to get some sort of boost off of doing it because you're never going to cast it if it doesn't benefit you. The nice thing here, though, is that you can swap an artifact that you control for a creature your opponent controls. You do not have to give your opponent a creature. In fact, you can't give them a creature. You have to give them an artifact. So obviously, you could give them like a vehicle, or you could give them something that they can use to actually pressure you. Or if you're playing like, I don't know, a blue Puzzle Knot and your opponent has no blue in their deck, you can swap your Puzzle Knot for their best creature. It's a permanent exchange. Your opponent can't even use the Puzzle Knot, and now you have their best creature. So essentially 2 for 1 in your opponent. And even in like not ideal circumstances, you can give them like an okay artifact creature for their best creature, which is really, really strong. I think this card is actually quite good, and I'm surprised it's not a rare because swapping like control magic effects are almost always rare. And the fact that you get to just give your opponent something that doesn't really matter, like give them a piece of equipment that's really, really bad, like the Artificer's Goggles or something like that, and in exchange, you get their best creature permanently, that seems really, really strong. It is 5 mana, it is sorcery, but it is uncommon too, so this is the type of thing you might actually see come up throughout the course of a couple games. I think it's quite good. Also, with just fabricate creatures and things like that in the format, if you make a 1/1 artifact servo creature or a Thopter, like even swapping that for your opponent's best creature seems really, really good. And something that, like, if you draft this card, it's not like you have to pull a lot of strings to make it happen. It's very likely that it'll happen, and you'll be able to pull it off. So I don't think this will ever be a dead card either. And then I believe this is the last card for today. It is. Key to the City is 2 mana for a rare artifact. You may tap it and discard a card to make up to 1 target creature unblockable for the turn, which is pretty sweet. And then whenever the Key to the City becomes untapped, you can pay 2 mana if you do draw a card. So overall, the effect is something like 2 mana, discard a card, target creature is unblockable, which is pretty strong. But you get to draw that card back if you pay the 2 mana on the following turn, which is pretty nice. If you're repeatedly using this effect, then it does lock down a good portion of your mana. There are sometimes some turns where you won't be able to afford to just use 2 mana to draw a card. You're going to need it to cast your spells, but this does do a couple neat things. First off, if there are abilities in this set that can tap artifacts for you, maybe some sort of like common or uncommon tapper that can tap an artifact, then you can just use that to make this a kind of conditional card draw engine instead of actually using the first ability on it. Second thing I'll mention is in Two-Headed Giant, you can use this to make your partner's creatures unblockable by discarding one of your own cards and still have the ability to draw a card back from it whenever it untaps. And then third off, I think this card is actually just really strong. It seems like a Rogue's Passage type effect, and those effects are usually pretty strong and limited because just making your creatures unblockable, making any creature unblockable seems really strong. So if you're playing the type of deck that, you know, has these 10/7 vehicles or something like that, and then you use Key to the City to just make that vehicle unblockable, it's really going to get in there, and it's not like your opponent can just afford to let you do that over and over again. They're going to have to interact with you at some point. Unblockable creatures can close out games of Limited very, very quickly, especially with some of the high power creatures in this format. So I think this is actually a really good card, and I'll be looking forward to playing with it. It's the type of card I feel like it is first pickable in draft unless you have like some really high quality uncommon. Maybe the 2/3 flying vigilant lifelink guy is probably a little bit better than this. That's kind of like what I'm using as the standout uncommon in this set right now, or at least having just initially looked at spoilers, that's the card that jumps out to me as, wow, this is an insanely good uncommon. But I think Key to the City does have potential to be a first pick rare for us. Anyway, some really interesting stuff here. We still got the Red Gear Hulk to go, which I imagine we'll get tomorrow. It seems like they've been doing 1 per day or something like that. And they finished up this cycle, which I wasn't expecting to be a cycle. We got some really janky cards, and I love janky cards. And not very much today, but quite a bit to talk about regardless. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thanks again for watching the video and taking your time out of the day to sit here and look at spoilers with me. I'm having a lot of fun with this set. I think it's awesome. I cannot wait to get my hands on a pre-release kit and start drafting this set after that. But until tomorrow, thanks for watching. My name's Timothy. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.